Namaste everybody. As Mr. Anand Swami and Mr. Jairam both said, we are commemorating the 50th year. If you look up the dictionary, commemoration has two possibilities. One is you recall and show respect, and the second is that you mark or celebrate. So very clearly we are doing the first. We are recalling and showing respect. This is not a celebration. So, these study centers in this form came into existence after Krishnamurti died in 1986. And you have to understand a little bit what the environment in 1986 was. There was no mobile telephone, there was no internet, and Krishnamurti's message and teachings was available as writings, audio cassettes, audio CDs, video CDs, DVDs, and they were all quite expensive. Not only were they expensive, you couldn't go anywhere and buy them. You had to contact the Krishnamurti Foundation, send them the money, then you would get a cassette. So, one of the first requirements at that time was a place where a collection of Krishnamurti's books, audios and videos would be available for people to watch. And the study center started with that. The second thing was to facilitate dialogue and dialogue meetings, because in Krishnamurti's approach, dialogue was a very, very important component. And the third was to act as a nodal point for like-minded people to gather. Now, 4 decades later, we should ask, what is the environment? Today, the entire gamut of the teachings, books, audio cassettes, video cassettes is available on the internet for no cost. Even if you are saddled with a video cassette or an audio cassette, you don't have the equipment to play it anymore. So we are completely dependent on what is available on the net. We don't need to go to a center to listen to any of these talks. Particularly after COVID, the communication technology has improved, and today we don't feel the gap of a distance. Video calls enable discussion meetings to happen without having to spend time and effort in traveling. So that requirement of a physical study center has also gone. The third objective of being a physical center where people can come together continues, particularly in the form of a retreat center that people would like to have a retreat. So, is that all the vision of a study center, or does a study center now need to adapt to this environment and ask, how do you take this forward in this environment? You can't just be doing what we were doing in the past. As I said, discussion and dialogue was a very, very important component with Krishnamurti. And I have to acknowledge Professor Krishna for this. In a foreword to one of the books that one of the forewords that he wrote, he pointed out something. A little extract from a discussion at Brockwood Park. So Krishnaji said in this Brockwood Park meeting with teachers, if a man lives in a kind of false illusion, he is not intelligent, right? So we are trying to find out what is supreme intelligence. Supreme intelligence is to have no illusions. That's only the beginning of it, right? Have you got illusions? And a questioner asked him, isn't what you say illusion for us? And Krishnamurti's answer was, yes, if you accept it. And time and again, Krishnamurti has said in his talks, the speaker is saying, don't accept, question it, doubt it, tear it to pieces. Find out for yourself if there's an action which is completely without division, separation, which is not based on thought. Find out for yourself was the essence of the message right through Krishnamurti's life. So, most of our discussions, if we get into it, you will see is, what did Krishnamurti mean by meditation? Whatever Krishnamurti meant, we can never find out, because the state of mind from which he talked, the audience to which he talked, the physical environment and the social environment to which he talked, we don't know. We are only going on the words. So we only interpret what we think Krishnamurti meant. And I think that is a very humbling thought that whatever we think we have understood of Krishnamurti is only our interpretation. It may or may not be what he actually meant. And it doesn't matter, because ultimately I have to find out for myself. So there is this famous expression of Krishnamurti, be a light to yourself. But the fact remains that Krishnamurti is undisputedly an authority for us. What he says cannot be contradicted. But why is it that he is an authority for us? Sometimes clarity in a person can look like authority in somebody else. But it's the person looking has to decide, is it from clarity or is it just authority? Take the case of a young child, a very young child who's walking towards the end of that wall. The parent catches him immediately and turns him around. Is the parent acting from clarity or from authority? For the parent, he is acting from clarity. World around may say, that's not right. You're not letting the child experiment. But for the parent, he is acting from clarity. And that is very important for us to be able to do, to act from clarity. But can we ever be completely clear? Can we know that we are clear? We can never know. And that is where inquiry comes in. There is always this element of a doubt which says, I think I am clear, but is that clarity? Or is there possibly something that I have missed out? And therefore you will find that in this journey through life, our own perspectives change. So we might have listened to Krishnamurti in 1985 and something might have touched him now. And today we say, yes, but I think there's a different perspective. And that is very, very valuable. So continual inquiry is the requirement, not a one-time inquiry. Now, inquiry can be of many kinds. We classified it as religious inquiry, scientific inquiry, philosophical inquiry. But is it really of many kinds? Or does all inquiry come from only one, the true religious inquiry? But then that raises the question, what do we mean by religious? Now, Krishnamurti's talks and writings are so vast that a lifetime is not enough to study them. So what do? We take a passage from here, we take a sentence from there, and then we get into the study of that little passage. As I said, there is a context in which that passage or quotation is made. If there is an audience to which it is said to, that is not even available to us. So for example, Krishnamurti in his talks has said, millions have been killed in the name of religion. And then in another place he said, Christians have killed more human beings than anybody else. After them, probably the Islam. The religion that has not killed people is Buddhism, and after that, Hinduism. So, as a Hindu, I can feel very proud of this. But I don't ask the basic question, is Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism religion? Or are they just organized belief structures? This question we don't ask, and we continue condemning all what is said in the name of religion as religion. Now, God is a common factor to all organized religions. And we know that God is a creation of thought. But why does thought create this concept of a God? Is it not that thought can only work through words and images? It can't conceive of nothingness. And therefore it creates some symbol. Even today for energy we have a Z, or for nuclear energy there's another symbol. Because without a symbol there's no thought possible. And therefore when we say God at one level, is that not just a symbol for something deeper? And we are fighting about that outer thing but completely leaving out the symbol behind. If you were of my generation, it's about 50 years ago, and you traveled anywhere in Andhra, Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, and you said Sri Rama, Sri Krishna or Mahavishnu, the face that came to you was N.T. Ramarao. Because so powerful was his domination through the cinema that The moment you name these personages, it was the figure of N.T. Ramarao that came in front of you. That is how thought works. Should we remain caught at that level? Now, one thing we know, that there exists an energy that is beyond thought. And is this not true religious inquiry? The inquiry into that which is beyond the measure of the mind. Obviously, the mind can't catch it, but the mind is the instrument. Only insight and perception can bring it about. And therefore, you come to what we call the human opportunity. Now, if you walk around this campus, you will find a lot of Parthenium and Subabul. Both were brought by human beings. And every year after the monsoon, they sprout. And we go on this massive clearing campaign, we cut them out because they tend to overtake everything else. The next year, the same thing happens. Because you only cut the top, the roots remain. Unless you remove the root, this can never be taken out. And therefore, if you look at our living, our daily living is cluttered. Cluttered with our reactions, cluttered with our ideas, cluttered with our desires, unfulfilled particularly, and we don't let go of them. So Krishnamurti said at different places, let me just tell you at 3 places. One is in the last talk in 4th of January 1986 that he gave at Madras. He ended that talk saying, if you have made a mess of your life, change it. Change it today, not tomorrow. If you are uncertain, find out why and be certain. If your thinking is not straight, think straight, logically. Unless all that is prepared, all that is settled, you can't enter into this world, into the world of creation. This is what he said there. And in another talk he said, I want to cry for you. All this is to you meaningless. And a day before he died, he said, no one got it. So, what was he pointing at? Was he not pointing at the human opportunity? But was Krishnamurti alone in pointing at the human opportunity? In the culture of this land, the Vedantic culture of this land, the human opportunity has been stressed again and again and again by saying, out of a countless births, you are lucky you get a human birth. And in that human birth, if you are lucky, you get an environment which is conducive with satsang, the right family. And in our case, I will say, even luckier than that, to come into contact with a seer. So close to a seer, to see an illumined person in your life. At the end of it, what have we done with the opportunity? Have we just let it go? How do you make use of this, an opportunity, the probability of which cannot even be computed? So, one of the qualities of a river, a flowing river, is that it regenerates itself. If a river is flowing, even all the garbage and dumped into it gets cleared after a few kilometers. The swifter the flow of the river, the faster the river clears itself. At the same time, if water stagnates, it dies. So what will make the message and teaching of a seer like this be alive and flowing? It's only inquiry. Only inquiry is going to keep it flowing. And here I come to something you may not agree with me. Please question me on this afterwards. I am saying that if you are inquiring, there must be disagreement. See, organized religions of any kind don't want disagreements. That affects the smooth flow of the program that they have made. So they don't encourage questioning beyond a frame. They draw the boundaries and say, stick within this. Any organized religion, any organized society will do that. I can never understand what Krishnamurti intended or meant when he said something. I have to come upon that meaning for myself. And I am changing continuously through life. So I have one perspective today. A few years from now, I have a different perspective. Therefore, I am continuously changing. And therefore, I must be continuously disagreeing with the meaning which I have formulated for myself. So disagreement is essential. It's a sign that inquiry is happening. If I know once and for all and I'm sure, then that means there's no inquiry happening. So, this is why, in my understanding, Krishnamurti said, don't accept what I say, tear it apart. When you tear it apart, what you ultimately digest is your understanding. That has value. Why do we hesitate to do that? Because we want validation of the world around and we want the majority to agree. Why can't I stand alone? If I feel this is right, I feel this is right. Tomorrow I may change. But there will be a logical reason and an argument why I am changing. So, let me bring out a few things which I have disagreed with Krishnamurti's message. Right? I have no agreement with the message of the master. I have the disagreement with what we have done with it. So, as Mr. Anand Swami pointed out, first came the center, then came the school. Why? Because the moment you go into Krishnamurti's teachings, you understand that this is a message that is applicable to daily living. And when you go into daily living, you will inevitably get into education because that's the preparation for the young child for his living. So, this is what he said about education. If you love your child, you will educate him not to conform to society, but to create his own society, which may be entirely different from the present one. You will help him to have not a traditional mind, but a mind that is capable of inquiring into the significance of all the cultural, social, religious and national influences by which he is surrounded, and not to be caught in any of them, so that his mind is free to find out what is true. Surely this is right education. Now, I have no dissension with this. This is very clear to me. But when I look at this is the theory. But what happens in practice in the world? If you walk around the campus, you will now find many mango trees have started flowering. And very soon after flowering, you will find a very small mango, the size of a mustard seed, in each one of those flowers. Now that little seed contains within itself the entirety of the mango tree, because that is what is going to sprout tomorrow. There is no later input coming in which is going to decide it's the mango tree. Over the next few months, till about May or June, this fruit will grow and then it will ripen. And then we'll harvest it, and we'll peel the skin, eat the pulp, and what do we do with the fruit? With the seed? Out it goes into the garbage. It has no use for us. And in the world of technology today, the seed is not even required to get the next tree. We have found ways of grafting, biotechnology, etc., where the mango tree can be duplicated without the need of the seed. So why do you need the seed? And if you notice, the same thing is coming into human life. Man and woman don't have to come together today anymore to have children. And therefore, what dominates our discussion is same-sex marriage, living together, having children through IVF. Is this very different from what is happening with the mango tree? Is that a direction that is even healthy to go into? So, what is it behind that is driving this direction? Is it not the importance of I, the ego, my pleasures, my fulfillment, my? And is that intelligent? If you even ask that question, would you continue in that direction? So, from that, Mr. Anand Swami said, Krishnamurti said, get 50 acres of land, they got 100, and they have a beautiful school. And today, Krishnamurti education, the vision which I read out just now, has become synonymous with this model. Is this the only model of Krishnamurti education? If it is, I have tremendous disagreement with it, because this is too exclusive. How many children can have access to a school which has 100 acres of land? So is Krishnamurti education only for the exclusive, affluent section of society which can afford it? That's not right. That vision of education is universal. So the vision must be translatable universally in whichever way it happens. It doesn't have to be done in the same way. The second thing is, the Krishnamurti school started as residential schools, Rajghat and Rishi Valley. And that was the intent of the Valley School all along, that this should be residential. It didn't happen. And I'm glad it didn't happen. I completely disagree with this residential school model. The residential school model that we adopt in India is the British public school model. And it had one objective: prepare workforce for the colonies and the army. And it still does that in that way. Why are we adopting that method? Right? Are we saying that parents have no role in the growth of their children? There is a time when every young person wants to move out, and generally it is late teenage. At that time, we should let him go and not hold him back. But what we should be giving a young child, first of all, is that sense of security, safety, of being available as a parent. It starts very early in life. So, to me, the most important part of education is not this post-teenage that we do with all this dialogue and discussion and reading Krishnamurti. It's that stage of the human being where the child learns to explore, feels safe, feels confident, is not dependent. These are the qualities that are encouraged. At what age do you start? In the tradition of this land, it is said, this starts even before the child is born. And you will find Puranic stories, the story of Dhruva, the story of Ashtavakra, children who have learned before they were born. Now, we don't even look at these possibilities because we have completely cut off that wealth of heritage that we have. We have stuck to only this, and we say we don't study anything else, and that's our loss. So, to start a school for a child of 2.5, you don't need engineers, doctors, people with MSc, masters. You need first somebody who's very, very affectionate with children. And that's very difficult to find. So it's far more difficult to come down to that 2.5, 3, 4, 5 years of age and provide a school, an environment where we are not telling them what to do. And don't try this is not safe. Our fears come in all the time. And that's the age completely ignored in society, if you notice. Why aren't we looking at that? Because we don't correct that, when children come to these schools, they already come with quirks. And you are fighting that all the time in your life. Then we say, to meet this problem, we will have this residence. To meet this problem, we will do something else. We are only fighting problems. The root starts there. Therefore, I feel this residential, particularly for young children, is wrong. We should go much, much more into kindergarten, preschool. Because we don't have that, everybody runs to the nearest school which will make sure that their child can get into class 1 of a reputed school. That's the only objective. And in the process, we are killing the childhood of that child. Very, very few children have that space in their child today. And it's increasingly becoming a threat. Then I said, right education is for all, right? And this is in another quote of Krishnamurti. I don't know if you've heard this. If you are interested in really educating your children, obviously you will start a school anywhere, just around the corner, in your backyard or in your room. That's not with 100 acres of land. It's not with this model. So it's much more, what is it that you create as an environment starting with you? So if you are inquiring, you are going to create an environment where the child is also inquiring. If you as a parent are not inquiring, what environment is the child going to get? He's going to get all your, whatever you have. So it comes back to me as an adult. What is it that I am living? Far greater criticism I have of the present model of education, whether in Krishnamurti schools or in all these English medium schools, is the fact exclusion of religious inquiry completely from education. English medium schools particularly are the culprits in this, right? 2 days ago, there was a little child who came into the house. That child means middle school. And we were having a chat, and I said, because newspaper is full of Ram Janmabhoomi. I said, what do you know about the Ramayana? And what he knew can be summed up in this. There was a person called Rama. His wife was Sita. She was kidnapped by Ravan. Ravan was killed by Rama. This is Ramayana for them. And who is at fault for that? You and I. Because have we read the Ramayana? We haven't. Without reading it ourselves, what will we communicate? We will communicate this is some mythological story. Rama never existed, and this is what we give. So Krishnamurti said, you never read the book of yourself. If you know how to read the book, which is yourself, you don't have to read a thing in the world. He said this, and he also said, I haven't read a single one of these books. So he lived what he said, and he said what he lived. Now we quote this. This is justification for us not to read any scriptural text. But are we reading the book of our life? We're not doing that either. So then we are neither here nor there. There's an expression in Hindi for this. Na dhobi ka kutta, na ghar ka, na ghat ka. This is exactly where we are. Particularly us intellectuals, Western educated intellectuals, there's a very nice expression for us. I find today, it's called the left liberal intellectual. I think it applies to all of us. We are part of that. So this is my big question. I was fortunate to listen to Krishnamurti in the flesh, okay? Today, whatever I read is a recording of his. So, there are said to be 108 Upanishads. Krishnamurti is the 109th Upanishad. What is the difference? Except that my association goes back to 50 years and I say, I listened to that. But that's all in memory. What is important is not the person, but what was said. What was said, anything of what was said is valuable if I take it apart and ask, is there something worthwhile in it? So, why am I not reading any of the scriptural heritage of this land? And this comes to the next one. See, I understand the danger of encouraging nationalism. But what about culture? Can there be such a thing as a vacuum in culture? There can't be. If you are not, culture is what you live. And if we are not working at that culture that I am living in, the dominating culture from outside will come in. And that's what has happened precisely today. We are so overawed with this culture that comes in from the West. We accept everything of it. And where you see it most is in festivals. No Indian festival today has any connect for most of us. But where I stay, I find that Valentine's Day, Halloween, these are big festivals. Why? So the significance of the festival is gone. And one of the major reasons for that very clearly is the breakup of the family. See, festivals were maintained because grandparents maintained them. So grandparent is gone, then it became the nuclear family. Now the nuclear family has gone down further. No festival means anything. There is a symbolical meaning behind every festival. And there will be a story there. And you have to take the story at its literal level. Then you have to chew it and ask what it means far below. Just for example, the story of Deepavali. Every Deepavali, what comes up is Supreme Court is banning for use of firecrackers with this chemical, that chemical. This is what Deepavali is about. And it's about buying a lot of sweets. But in the south, it is not Deepavali, it is Naraka Chaturdashi. So that is the ending of Naraka. Why is it celebrated? Why is somebody's death being celebrated? So the story goes, the Puranic story, that Naraka was born to Mother Earth. And he became such an evil Asura that he had to be killed. And on his death, the mother rejoiced. Something mothers never do when their children die. And she said, let this date not be a date of mourning, but a date of celebration. Now, this is the story. Because human thought can only think like this. But go below this. What are we celebrating really? The moment you do that, then the celebration takes a meaning. Now, for a very young child, Deepavali means a lot of sweets in the house, a lot of crackers, a lot of lights, okay. But along with that is also the undercurrent of the story. So when you cut that story off and Deepavali means buy sweets from the nearest sweet shop, the sanctity of the festival goes. And that's what is happening today. So I am saying we are deliberately undermining the culture that exists in this land. Why? Without understanding what it is. Today, the newspapers are filled with Ram Janmabhoomi. Why is Ayodhya sacred? Because Rama was supposed to have been born there thousands of years ago. We don't even know if Rama was as a person existed. Why is this study center sacred? Because Krishnamurti lived here in 1974 for 1 week. Is there a difference between the two? So, again with Rama and Ramayana, they are not personalities, but they are qualities. There's a very nice expression in the North India. They say Rama is Maryada Purusha. Now, Maryada Purusha has no translation in English. Just as Dharma has no translation in English, no equivalent. We have to ask what it is. What are these qualities of Rama which we are putting on the pedestal? The truth, say one thing, stick to it, commitment. Right? Do we value these qualities? That is what that story is all about. So, I feel there's something very wrong in what we are doing in pushing out this culture. And you see it most in the calendar. There's one calendar today, the Gregorian calendar. We have another calendar. It's there, exists in every state. Every festival is linked to a tithi in that. We don't know what is the tithi. What is the difference between a day and a tithi? We don't know. Why is the birthday celebrated as a particular tithi? We don't know. But all the information is on the net. You just Google search, you'll find it. And it's quite meaningful in that. There is some sense in all that. So, the moment you do that, you ask, does it mean you have to throw the Gregorian calendar away? No. But can you think with multiple calendars? Why not? That today is 7th of January. It's also this day in the lunar calendar. Why can't we think like that? The moment we see the importance of it, we will do it. So, mind is also a slave to tradition. Right? And we are very fond of quoting Krishnamurti to point out the dangers of tradition. On the 1st of January, in the morning, this WhatsApp is filled with Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, message after message. Isn't that a tradition? Because one question that comes to me always is, what is new about this new year except the year number has changed? What else is new about this year? If what we are celebrating is that we are alive, we should be doing it every morning when we get up, that we are alive. So, tradition is tradition only if you follow unquestioningly. If you question something and then do it, you are not following tradition anymore. So, if whatever may be the practices of religion, if you are not following it as a practice, because that is what was done in the past, but you say, there is a sense in this namaskar, it says, I am respecting the life in you. There is a sense in the prostration, because when the head touches, when the forehead touches the ground, you will feel that ego coming down. You feel it. But in all our English medium schools, we are against prostration. I mean, that's not a culture we bring in any way. And I ask why. Right? So, I think we need to redefine these things for ourselves. And in doing that, only in doing that, this statement of Krishnamurti, either the centers are like a rock around which the waters of destruction flow, or they go with the current of decay. These places exist for the enlightenment of humanity. The place doesn't exist by itself. It's the people who make the place, not the physical place. So can these study centers exist in isolation like this? A study center that is in India must interact with the culture of this environment. It must, and then it must bring out the point of discussion. Why does this seem to say this and this seem to be different? Is there a difference? Or we only think there is a difference? This gives an active discussion dialogue, and I think that brings some meaningful insight at the end. See, no seer or scripture gives us wisdom. They only point to wisdom. Wisdom is something every person has to discover for himself. So what everybody is giving you is a pointer. But it's not only seers and scriptures will give you pointers. Even watching today's politics can give you insights. For example, I'll give you 2 examples and then I'm finished. One is that, some time back there was a picture of the Prime Minister having a cup of tea with a lady in Ayodhya. And the newspaper said, 2024 election, blah, 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 blah. They went on and on. They missed something completely from it. That lady was from the Nishad community. Now what is so special about the Nishad community? Guha, the boatman, who took Rama across the river when he went into exile, was the king of the Nishads. Now this kind of association you will find all through India. So Ayodhya, you say, is birthplace of Rama. Dandakaranya forest is in Chhattisgarh. It's associated with the time he was in exile. You will find associations like this everywhere. Why should we not even look at these? When you say Chitrakoot, what is that? So we don't connect to any of these places. So that is isolation. And I think trying to live here and be culturally isolated from the culture of this place is to me silly. There's another political analyst called Prashant Kishore. Maybe some of you have. This fellow is going around Bihar on his Jan Swaraj. He said something very interesting. He said, Andha bhakt mat banaiye, barbad kar dega. Don't believe blindly, it will ruin you. Isn't that a pointer to wisdom? So with pointers to wisdom can come from anywhere. They don't have to come only from seers. If you are interacting with life, there are enough pointers to wisdom. So what I'm trying to say at the end is, inquiry is the essential feature. A group of human beings coming together, alive with inquiry, that is a study center. Just designating a building as study center doesn't make it study center. So each one of us can be a study center where we are in today's world, if we are inquiring. And that, I think, is the value, not just Krishnamurti, but of every seer that I have heard. Ramana Maharshi, same thing. Aurobindo, same thing. Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, same thing. So why do we look at Krishnamurti in complete isolation, ignoring this huge heritage that we have here? That is an opportunity we have been given. Why are we throwing it away? That's my question. Thank you.